Well, I want to talk about first the movie Saturday Night, which I saw recently. You
hmm
are depicted in it. Uh,
Me and Tom
yeah,
together.
right. And that's your writing partner, Tom Davis.
That's right.
And the movie focuses really, though, on Lorne, and I know
Right.
Lorne Michaels, and I know that there's much more to the movie than this, but it seems like no one else, all of you, really don't know what's going on here, what this is going to be, but that Lorne Michaels is the one who does. Is that your memory of it 50 years ago?
Well, to some extent, the first show was not like what the show became. We had George Carlin, and he did two monologues, and we had two music guests, and we had Valerie Bromfield did a stand-up thing. So it was the first, but the movie. Let's go to the movie.
Yeah,
I saw the movie, and it was just crazy in terms of the conceit it had, which was that Lorne was normally there's a dress rehearsal leading up to the show, right?
right.
And so what if you did a movie about that 90 minutes before the show, about 45 of it at least would be Lorne looking at the show and taking notes, giving notes, so that he could tell the actors and writers what to do
Right.
in between dress and air. So this wasn't a realistic. It was. It wasn't. Let's say it didn't show what happened really.
Right. It's not documentary. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
beyond that, but
Right.
to us it
It's
was silly because
fictionalized. Yeah.
at the end, should we run the show or run the
Mm.
dress or what? That nothing like that ever happened.
Right.
Yeah,
But the idea that it seemed to be in Lorne Michaels' head, and the rest of you all had parts to play, but he knew what the whole thing would become. Is that fair, or was he as seat of the pants as anybody those early shows?
well, it was interesting because that first show did not reflect what the show ended up being.
Right. Right.
That much. And then the second show was like a Simon and Garfunkel reunion, so it was kind of a music show starring them. Then around the third show, he had Candice Bergen, and that was the first one that actually felt like it had the shape of of show, of cold
Right.
opening monologue, then a sketch,
Celebrity
or
host.
a commercial parody,
Yeah.
celebrity host,
Right.
and then it really became what it was.
That writer's room was always described in that whole process. The Tuesday night write the sketches always has been called a pressure cooker.
Right.
And that you work all night. You're all working there together. It gets sort of crazy. But tell me what your memories are of those Tuesday nights and the writing. Of the
Someone asked
sketches.
me what my favorite memory of Saturday Night Live was. It would be like 2 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday morning, in the middle of the night, falling on the floor laughing at something somebody said, either a cast member or another writer, because that's very often the cast. Like Dana Carvey would be writing Hans and Franz with Kevin, so there were writers and performers, and when it worked, there's nothing better. There is not
Yeah.
when it was working, nothing is better. When it doesn't work, it is awful.
Right.
And that's why you have more than one writer. That's why. When we started the show, we had like 11 writers and 7 cast members. If you think about what the show is now in terms of the number of people who
Yeah.
perform, we just had the 7, and that was really good for them because they got a lot of reps. They got a lot. Players
Yeah.
were on
Yeah.
every show several times.
I want to ask a little more about that experience when it wasn't working, when you couldn't come up with an idea. You say it was the worst possible
Yeah,
thing.
that's it.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Well, Woody Allen said that comedy is either easy or it's impossible. And the impossible thing is when you just don't got a funny idea in your head, and your job is to write a sketch. Now, what would happen then if I was completely barren. I would just try to work with other writers or cast members and just get in the mix, and then help somebody with their idea. So that when the writing staff is working together, it really is a joyful kind of thing. And I did 15 seasons on the show, and that was mainly my experience.
Competitive, though. Tina Fey says, we like to think it's all collaboration, but in the end, it's competitive because some of those skits that actually are rehearsed at dress rehearsal don't get on.
Lorne is very strict about this. They're called sketches.
Sketches. That's right. That's right. I've heard that, and I should have
That's all right.
taken that. Yes.
You're a civilian, so you don't have to.
What is the difference between a skit and a sketch?
I don't know what the difference is, but we just said sketch, and we won't say skit. Yeah, there's no real difference. Yeah.
But some of the sketches would not get on. You would have a dress rehearsal, and then Lorne would determine which ones.
Right, exactly.
And you'd wait nervously. I understand it was about 90 minutes before air. And tell me what that was like.
Long.
Not even that long. Okay.
No. It was about probably on average a half an hour. Yeah.
Okay.
And so decisions have to be made quick, and things have to get cut, and they get cut, and then you wait outside Lorne's office, and then you come in with about 15 or 20 waiting for the show, if that, and then he goes through the notes, and you're making cuts in your sketch. You're doing all kinds of things, but you go look up at the board and see if your sketch is in or your sketches are in, and so it could be disappointing, but. Actually, he cut my parents once.
Tell me about that.
Well, we did a Franken and Davis show, and I had my parents on, and all I can say is the sketch was cut, and Lorne just said, "Don't make me cut your parents ever again."
Okay. But they were there for dress rehearsal and went
they were there in dress rehearsal and got cut, and they had been on the show before, and it had worked out really well, but this one got cut. So
that's showbiz.
That's showbiz.
But do you get used to that, or does it really sting? Do you ever get used to it?
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And then there's always next week. We had 20 shows, so you could always, if something got cut that you felt like really deserved to be on, and that it worked in dress, but we just ran out of time or something like that, you could resurrect the thing. But basically, you moved on to the next host.
And the laughter in the studio that night of dress rehearsal, that moment determined whether that skit would move on to the final show.
Not always.
Okay.
I mean, Lorne was very discerning. Sometimes there are sketches that didn't get what it deserved, or were not necessarily meant to be huge laugh getters, but had something else, some emotional content or something like that, dare I say. Yeah. And mainly it was laughs. It was funny. I'm a big fan of the Grateful Dead, and we had them on twice. And each time they were on, the laughter was diminished because Deadheads were so resourceful in getting tickets that everyone knew an uncle who knew a guy who worked in the sales department at NBC and could get you tickets. And so Deadheads weren't a great comedy audience. Right. So we only had them on twice. That was it. And don't have the Dead again.
So instead of looking back to those early seasons, just look at the whole totality of 50 years of Saturday Night Live.
Huh? Yep.
It's amazing. 50 years, all the casts, all the different musical guests, all of that will be celebrated this weekend on NBC. But how do you reflect on it? What role does it play in American life?
Well, we were, fortunate to be the only live sketch show on TV, and by sketch I mean sketch, and not sketch. But anyway, and that you carry some responsibility. I wrote a lot of topical stuff. I wrote a lot of the political stuff, as you might guess.
Sure.
And with other people, and with other writers, and like when Dana did George H.W. Bush, he'd write with us, with me and another guy, Jim Downey, and so we had an advantage. Well, we had a place where we could do political satire, and we tried not to really take sides. We tried to, what we tried to do was reward people who knew stuff about politics, but not punish them for not knowing. So that was that was.
Tell me more about how you do that.
Well, it's interesting. When I say that, it's not like playing down to people who don't know much about politics. It's really playing up to everybody. But every once in a while you'd sneak in, like if Jim Jordan, I'm saying right now,
Today,
if you did a sketch, you might just, for people who really pay attention to politics, do a committee hearing where he has his shirt off, because that's what he does, right? And so if you're someone who actually follows politics and watches things like hearings and stuff like that, you'd go like, oh, okay, that was for me. So you're not punishing people for not knowing that. It doesn't take any time. It's just so.
But it's still got to be funny if you don't know it, if you don't know the reference that week.
Yeah, if you don't know that little thing, it doesn't take any time to show that he has no sport coat or suit coat on.
Right. Yeah.
So you're not diminishing anything by adding a joke for people who get it. So and they weren't inside jokes. They were just jokes that we wanted to give. We wanted people who paid attention to politics to watch the show.
Little extra credit for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Lorne Michaels was quoted in one of the articles I was reading leading up to this, that everybody remembers their favorite SNL group or cast or period as when they were in high school. Do you think that's true?
I think it's true to a great extent, because I was just talking to someone last night, and a friend of mine was in Kansas City, and he calls me up, and he had watched the Saturday Night Live movie, or the Saturday Night movie himself, and he was wondering whether it was, how accurate it was. And so, what was the question? I forgot what the question was.
High school. When we were in high school, that's our favorite cast.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's entirely true, though. Might be.
He told me when he started watching the show was in high school.
Right.
And I think when you start, and it may depend on who the cast was. I like to think that, people's favorite cast was when I was writing on the show, but because I wrote for 15 seasons, the first 5, then was left for 5 and came back for 10. But I think, people kind of remember the time they first got into the show. And
I have to ask.
That's their favorite time. I think.
I have to ask you about one appearance on Weekend Update I came across when it was the Al Franken decade, the 80s, was ending. And that's your son, Joe. Is he, 4 or 5 years old? And he's
so
really funny.
The 70s was ending.
Okay, the 70s. I thought it was in the late 80s, but the 70s? Okay.
I made the 80s. See, the 70s was the me decade.
Right.
And then I would notice that everyone was starting to write what the 80s would be.
Right.
And someone in the energy business would have a piece in Newsweek saying, energy is going to be the it's going to be the energy decade.
Energy decade. Okay.
Right. And people would. So I thought, well, wait a minute, that's just the me decade for this guy in energy, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought I'd just do the me Al Franken decade.
Right.
That's what it was, or the Al Franken decade.
But it was it was close to New Year's Eve, and you said the next decade, which I assume was the 90s, would be the Joe Franken decade, and you had your son on the set there, and he had to be 4 or 5 years old, and he was very funny. How much coaching? It's very sweet.
Well, it was so funny because we did dress rehearsal, and he thought he was done. He thought he had done it, and I had to go, no. And of course, the show is at 11:30, and which means update is around 12:10 or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So we had to keep this kid up. But he did it. He pulled it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets laughs. Did you ever want to be the Weekend Update anchor?
I did, and
Yeah.
I didn't get it, and it worked out well. It's what Norm Macdonald got it. I thought Norm did it better than me. I was kind of known as a liberal for stuff I did in politics, actually outside the show, and so I think that it would have been. If I was doing an update, it would have had a bias to it, or people would have perceived the bias. And Norm was hilarious. So I thought, and then I went on to write. What I did, the first thing I did was I wrote Rush Limbaugh's a big fat idiot and other observations. I was successful outside the show.
It worked out well. Today, your successor, Senator Tina Smith, announced that she's not going to run again.
Yes.
So what did you think when you heard that news?
Well, I felt, okay, I understand. Tina's done a great job. Really, she did something to talk about her own depression and how she was able to get, had the resources to get help.
Right.
And that everyone should have that. And I thought that was a really bold thing, and she did great stuff on energy efficiency. Tina was a really great senator, or is. She's still got 2 years, right?
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah. You have said that being a U.S. senator representing Minnesota was the best job you ever had.
That's right.
So a lot of people listening remember your very poignant resignation speech.
Yeah.
You said, "I would do it all over again in a heartbeat." People are going to want to know, will you run for Senate and try to get your seat back?
No.
Why not?
Well, basically because I've been living in New York mainly because I have grandchildren here,
Yeah.
and I have grandchildren in L.A. So I spend some time in Minnesota. We still have a place there. But I vote now because I spend more time in New York than I spend in Minnesota, so I have to vote in New York.
Right.
So I don't think I'd win. That's one thing. Because
You don't? No.
Well, no. I mean, like here's a carpetbagger. Revert. It'd be a weird thing to accuse me of, though. Actually,
You'd have to move back to Minnesota.
Oh yeah, well, there's no moving.
Establish your primary. You have a place. Yeah,
it's a place we spend time in anyway, but not as much as we do in New York and Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. So, what advice do you have for Democrats, either in office or those who voted for Kamala Harris and feel especially defeated in this Trump administration? They feel like it's futile, like there's nothing that can be done against the Trump agenda, given the majorities in Congress. So what advice do you have?
Hang in there, stay in there, speak up. We've always seen administrations start off strong, and then somewhere along the line, something happens. And so, but there's important stuff to be fighting back against. USAID, for example, it's like 1% of our entire budget, but it does some great things around the world for especially people in impoverished nations and saves a lot of lives. And I'm very much worried about it going away. And it also is soft power, It wins us friends, and I'm afraid that we're going to lose those friends if we shut that down. It looks like that's what they're doing.
Given the way Trump is working with so many executive orders, and some of those, it seems to me, are end runs around Congress, what can Democrats in Congress practically do?
Well, they can, they can go to court on some of this, and I think a lot of what he's doing is not. They have gone to court, and they have had decisions in their favor. So, that, and then you have to. The court process sometimes takes a long time, and Trump is counting on that. But I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the action on this.
Is there anything that he's done that has surprised you in this second term?
Just everything. Everything I go like, oh my God. Well, one thing that really surprised me was pardoning the January 6th people who, especially the ones who, were beating up cops. And, those Capitol Police, were people that took care of us in Congress. And I can't believe that he pardoned some of those people.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to Saturday Night Live. There's a question I had that I forgot to ask, and that is your favorite creation or favorite moment of something either you wrote or performed.
Okay. I'll go with Julia Child bleeding to death.
Okay. That was fairly early, right? That was
let me see.
First season?
Oh, no. That was you know why you're confused? Because in the Saturday Night movie,
they show it being
the show, the writers, I guess, being Tom or somebody working on blood spurting, but it didn't happen until like the third or fourth season.
Okay.
And
but it's Dan Aykroyd as Julia Child. She cuts her finger.
What happened is that Tom and I were watching, for some reason we were watching the Today Show, and Julia Child was on, and she cut herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, well, okay, or we went, that's a sketch. And it was interesting. It's one of the few sketches that was held over for another week because the blood spurting wasn't working well enough.
Well enough, right?
When we did actually do the show, when on air live, Danny was perfect, and Tom was under the kitchen counter there was an insecticide sprayer that had the blood in it, and Tom and Danny worked together perfectly to time the spurts, and I mean it was very intricate, but it worked like gangbusters. So that's one of the reasons that's one of my is my favorite thing, because the degree of difficulty,
the technical degree of difficulty,
it was amazing, and to see Danny and Tom pull that off perfectly was, I'm just sitting there watching it. I'm on the floor. I'm 10 feet away from Danny or 15 feet watching him, and I'm going like, oh, okay, that one, yep, oh, gee, oh, God, oh. Good for you. And, Tom, who had been a cast member at Dudley Riggs' Brave New Workshop, thought of the last beat. The last beat was Julia Child goes and she goes, the phone, call 911. And she picks up the phone and she tries to call 911. She goes, it's a prop phone. And that was from in improvisation when you're at Dudley's or any other place, Second City or something like that. You look for objects a lot because you can invent everything in an improv. So I just wanted to put a shout out to Brave New Workshop. Did
you also work at Brave New Workshop with Dudley?
Tom and I performed there, but I wasn't a member of the cast, and the cast got training in improv from Del Close, who did the training at Second City. Mm-hmm. So we were like, Dudley's was like Third City, and Del Close would come up and give improvisational lessons to the cast at Dudley's.
What will you do for the 50th anniversary? Do you have a role? Do you have an on-stage bit?
I don't. I will be one of the people in the studio. I guess we have, the studio fits about 300 people, I think. Yeah. And so I'll be in the audience, so you'll probably see me one time or another. Yeah.
Al Franken, good speaking with you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Always good.
Yes, we'll do it again.
Yeah, thank you very much.